Hi, I'm Auntie Dawn. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm making breakfast kitchari. Now, kitchari is a traditional stew that comes to us from India. It's made from mung beans, white rice, and a variety of vegetables and spices. My version is made with sweet potatoes, black-eyed peas, and brown rice. I start by adding a couple of quarts of water to my insulated kettle and getting it heated up. I've also got brown rice that's been soaked for between 3 and 24 hours. Black-eyed peas that are just briefly soaked. You can see they like to stick to, so it's good to shake them up a little bit. I've got warm spices. This is cinnamon, ginger, and turmeric, and a little bit of salt, and ghee or clarified butter. Sweet potato. I need to rinse my rice. Right now I'll add ghee to the pot and set it to saute. Now that the butter is melted, I can add my spices. I'm going to saute them in this clarified butter until they're a little bit darker and nice and bubbly and smell aromatic. Right, yeah, you can see how the spices are starting to bubble already. We do not want them to burn, so I need to be ready with the next ingredient, which is rice. All right, now I'm going to stir to make sure none of that spice is stuck burning to the bottom. Now I will rinse and add black-eyed peas. Now I can add a teaspoon of salt and the rest of my water. This probably seems like a lot. I'm making a double recipe, which makes 4 quarts of kitchari. The standard recipe, which I've put down in the description, makes 2 quarts and it's much more manageable if you're just learning to make this. Now that is all the ingredients for the pressure cook, so I'm going to cancel it. Put the lid on, make sure it's set to maximum pressure, and now I'm going to put it on a 20-minute cycle. That's the less setting under multigrain. While that cooks, I'm going to prepare the sweet potato. Starting with well-scrubbed sweet potatoes, I'm going to slice off each end and then use a vegetable peeler to remove any rough sections or eyes. I want to leave most of the skin on if I can, depending on the condition of the sweet potato, because I find that that's where a lot of the flavor is, and I understand it's where a lot of the nutrients are. But I really don't want any of those rough sections ending up in the finished kitchari because they can have a very grainy, unpleasant texture. Okay, I want the sweet potato to be in small dice, and I find the easiest way to do that is to use a mandolin. A mandolin, also properly known as a finger mangler, is a highly effective but very dangerous tool. So I will be using this, which is the guide and guard, so that I can get the last bit of it without risking my fingers. So what I'm going to do is start by slicing it down this way toward the end. Just like that. Holding this section of it together because one of these flaps is very likely to want to break off. I'm going through the mandolin with the larger tooth setting. And you can see that yields little bits like this that saute up very nicely. So now I'm getting toward the end of the sweet potato. So I've got good slices all down the side, and I'm going to start using the guide, making sure I push down every cut so that I get nice even slices, not little razor thin ones. And this is about as far down as I'm going to get it, so that and any of these flaps that came off while I was working, I'm just going to cut it by hand. Okay, now I've done with the mandolin, but the danger does not end there. So I make sure I give it a good rinse. And put it in the dishwasher right away with these blades down where they're less likely to mangle someone who reaches in. Right now I can saute up the sweet potatoes. So I'm going to start by starting up the vent fan and turning the heat on under my frying pan. Now that my cast iron is really hot, I'm going to add my ghee, rotate it to coat, and add my sweet potatoes. Also going to add a little bit of salt. All right, stir them up. And cover. Okay, now that they've been cooking for a bit, it's time to open them up. Give them a stir, and now let them cook in the open so they can outgas a bunch more water. You can see they're getting done because you can see some of them are getting kind of brown and speckly. And if you're doing this yourself, you would notice that the whole kitchen is starting to smell like Halloween. It's been about 6 minutes and the sweet potatoes are done. You can see they're almost all nice and browned. Where they aren't brown, they've got that nice bright orange color. And so I'm going to turn it off and remove them to another plate. So now the pressure cycle is beeped done. So I'm going to cover this and do a quick release. I can remove the lid. And I'm going to give it a good stir, make sure nothing's stuck on the bottom. Now I can add the sweet potatoes. Right, now I'll put it on saute medium and let it cook for a few minutes till it gets a little bit soupy. Right, so now that the kitchari is done, I'm going to remove the cooking vessel from the pressure cooker and get ready to ladle into my jars. I'm doing this right next to the sink just in case anything goes wrong. Got my labeled lids, which I will secure. I ladle from the bottom, so I'm getting a good mix of the solids and the liquid. As this sits and cools and hangs out in the fridge, the rice and beans are going to absorb a lot of that remaining water. So when you actually dish this up for breakfast, it is going to look much thicker. And here is my finished breakfast kitchari. I like it with a little bit of maple syrup. In addition to that sucanat I put in already. It's nice. It's a little bit spicy, quite warm, and very hearty and filling. I once spent a whole morning whitewater rafting after just a cup of that and part of our hard-boiled egg, and I didn't even attempt to cannibalize anyone until lunch. I hope you enjoy this kitchari as much as I do. See you next time.